L'Shana Tova. As we gather together to celebrate Rosh Hashanah, the Jewish New Year, we embark on a new chapter of our lives, reflecting on the past and looking forward towards the future. This year, let us delve into a topic that might seem unconventional for a sermon within the context of Judaism: the relationship between our faith and the rapid advancements in artificial intelligence. The intersection of Judaism and artificial intelligence might raise eyebrows, but as Jews, we've always been a people of innovation, adapting to changing times while staying rooted in our traditions. This is a time to contemplate the ways in which our faith can guide our perspectives on AI and how AI might challenge us to reconsider fundamental aspects of our beliefs. Wait, does that sound like me? Is that something that I would have written? Does it sound like a person, or is it too stiff? I mean, it's pretty good. It's a solid introduction to a Rosh Hashanah sermon, but I don't know, it didn't quite flow like I expected it to. Perhaps that's because I did not, in fact, write it. It was written by ChatGPT after I put in the prompt, "Write a Rosh Hashanah sermon about Judaism and AI." It was pretty incredible, actually, how quickly the screen filled with words. Don't worry, the rest of the sermon is all me, but it begs the question, is it wrong if it weren't? The evolution and revolution of artificial intelligence has changed the way that we live our lives. Not only that, it's changed the way we think about our lives, the questions we ask, and the answers that we have come to expect. It's clear that we've just seen the beginning so far. And so the question that I would like to think about this morning is the very question that ChatGPT asked, namely, what are the ways in which our faith can guide our perspectives on AI? As I thought about it, there are three major categories in which I believe artificial intelligence can and will have a direct impact on our lives from a Jewish perspective: ethics, halakha, or Jewish law and observance, and community connection. It's on these three areas that I'm going to focus today, but I actually have to begin with a question. Actually, this topic has brought very little other than questions, but with all of the ideas being so new, I was left wondering, is there anything at all in our tradition that even remotely correlates with the wonder of artificial intelligence? It was a struggle until one day I was reflecting on our recent trip to Ronice in Prague, and I remembered the synagogue that we visited on the third day there, the Alt Neue Schule, or the Old New Synagogue. It sits in the heart of the old Jewish section of the city. It is Europe's oldest active synagogue, the shul of Rabbi Yehuda Loew, and the home of the Golem of Prague. Now, for those who have never heard of the Golem, I encourage you to read some of the amazing literature that's been written about it, but in short, the Golem was a human creation made to protect us and to help us live in a dangerous world. The Golem was created by the Maharal to deal with problems that were too big for us to handle on our own. In the case of 16th century Prague, it was the violence and the threat of anti-Semitism that impelled him to create the Golem, a protector of the Jewish community. The tradition goes that Rabbi Loew scooped up mud from the Vltava River, shaped it into a large, human-like figure, animated it with the name of God and the letters Aleph, Mem, Tet, which spell the word Emet, truth. Story after story has the Golem step up in critical situations and save the people of Prague from destruction. And yet there were limitations on what the golem could do. It could think and it could learn, but it had no soul, no true sentience, because it was not a creation of God. The more I thought about it, the more I realized that there are so many parallels between the golem of Prague and that which we call artificial intelligence today, beginning with their creation. Whether from the clay of a river or the other rare minerals of the earth that allow us to have our microchips and circuitry, they have both been manipulated, formed, and animated by human hands. They also have a similar purpose. The golem was created to serve and defend the Jewish community, to do the things that accomplish the tasks that we were not able to do. AI is ostensibly designed for the very same reason. Not necessarily to defend people, but to assist in healthcare, transportation, to increase productivity in ways that we could never do on our own. But both have the potential for catastrophe. In the stories from Prague, eventually the golem caused damage and destruction due to the errors of the very people who created it. Just last year, CNN reported at a Yale CEO summit in early June, 42% of CEOs asked say that, quote, AI has the potential to destroy humanity 5 to 10 years from now. Pundits have warned that artificial intelligence could lead to plagiarism, job losses, fake news, and additional harm. In that same report, a statement signed by OpenAI CEO Sam Altman, Geoffrey Hinton, the godfather of AI, and top executives from Google and Microsoft all said that mitigating the risk of extinction from AI should be a global priority, alongside other societal scale risks such as pandemics and nuclear war. So with our very lives potentially in the balance, what do we do? How should we as Jews think about AI? What guidance can our history and tradition give us when facing the challenges that AI might present? That leads us back to our three topics: ethics, the values by which we live our lives; halakha, the way in which we conduct ourselves in daily life as Jews; and connection, the community we build in which to live our lives. Perhaps our ancient tradition can guide us in this modern world after all. The ethical questions raised by AI are much more far-reaching than merely, are we creating something that will potentially destroy us? The very mechanics of how AI functions and learns brings ethical questions to the forefront. The fact that we are not going to be getting any new television shows or movies in the near future because of the writers and actors strike is rooted in the challenges of AI. In a world where everything on the internet is available to be read and mimicked by these AI models, where does privacy fit in? Where does intellectual property draw the line between what is mine, what is under my domain and under my control, and what can be used by any computer at any time? While it's true that the first two paragraphs of this sermon didn't really sound much like me, how long will it be until I can have a computer scan all my sermons and create one with my viewpoints, in my voice, with my name on it? It should come as no surprise that there are already AI rabbis ready to answer all your questions. In the description of Rebbe.io, it says, quote, "This AI rabbi is using the most powerful artificial intelligence technology that is publicly available, and it has the ability to think and reason on a level of actual human intelligence. But unlike humans, it has the entire Torah downloaded into its brain, and it scans through thousands of books of Torah in seconds with every answer it gives." They continue, "This is truly a miracle from Hashem." and we are working hard to spread this technology to all Jews in the world. This is just the beginning of an AI Jewish revolution. Is Judaism being enhanced by the ability to ask a question of a computer? That is the ethical quandary that AI presents us with. I mean, all of us live in the Google age. We're accustomed to being able to have answers to questions that used to take hours, sometimes days of research in libraries at our fingertips in seconds. But when the questions are not simple or just seeking information, it becomes up to each individual to figure out which ones to ask and what to search for. The creativity and non-linear human thought process is absent in AI. The answers we get from people who are able to hear, quote, beyond the question, to address those needs, are no longer there. It's one thing to ask Google what the Jewish definition of death is. It's quite another to have it make end-of-life decisions for us. In a conversation between Rabbi Ari Zivotofsky, who's a professor of neuroscience at the Bar Ilan University, and Rav Yosef Tzvi Rimon, the rabbinic head of the Jerusalem College of Technology, Rabbi Rimon says, there is no question that AI is becoming increasingly sophisticated and is able to perform human activities with greater speed and efficiency, often at a lower cost. In the healthcare system, AI is being used to spot lesions on mammograms, and AI systems are being developed to diagnose whether or not one will develop Alzheimer's or other diseases later in life. Based on the trajectory of today's research, one can envision that there will come a day when artificial intelligence will be making most medical decisions. Nevertheless, a doctor has something that AI lacks: human intuition. The heart of the ethical question in connection with artificial intelligence is, what is the difference between that and human intelligence? Can we rely on the non-human decisor to get it right? Can we rely on the human decisor to get it right? From a Jewish perspective, we think and we speak about humans as being created b'tselem Elohim, in the image of God. Rabbi Danny Schiff writes, no matter how animated, intelligent, responsive, or reliable our AI creations might become, AI will never attain the combination of qualities that will merit the status of being called b'tselem Elohim, in the image of God. Our tradition reminds us, on Rosh Hashanah especially, that the gift of being human, while sometimes leading us to making mistakes, is still one of the most precious gifts we have. It's our ability to identify those errors and see a way different from the way in which our life may have been programmed that allows us to change and grow and ultimately transcend our limitations. No matter how well programmed an algorithm is to learn, it must still always act in accordance with its rules. It will always be limited by its programmer. We are not. And that is the very purpose of why we gather here today on Rosh Hashanah, to transcend our own programming and surpass our own limitations. Now, the halachic or Jewish observance question that AI raises are also far-reaching. How much of what we as Jews, how much of what we do can be outsourced to computers? Can a robot check a Torah scroll? Can it write a Torah scroll? Can a robot be the mashgiach in a restaurant, the one who watches and ensures that all the food is kosher? Can AI help us with Shabbat observance, allowing us to do things that we would not otherwise be able to do? There is no doubt that AI can make our lives easier. That's what it was created to do. And that is just as true in some areas of Jewish practice. The main question that often arises among my colleagues and me is whether AI is capable only of the letter of the law, or can it comprehend the spirit of the law, as is so often needed in an evolving tradition. It reminds me of a conversation that I've had with a number of people over the years regarding Passover. When I grew up, as I know is the case for many of you, any Passover food that was prepackaged was unsatisfying, to say the least. There were 2 or 3 flavors of Manischewitz cakes, and they all tasted a bit like sweet sawdust. Now, we have cereals and Passover cakes that are as good as year-round. And the conversation I recently had was about Passover bagels. They come in a box. They're absolutely kosher for Passover. And the question is, are we missing the point by eating them? Does technology that allows us to eat something like a Passover bagel actually take away from the idea with which we're trying to connect in the first place? Now, one could make the argument on both sides of that question. On the one hand, if the idea is to make Passover a different time than the rest of the year, then perhaps we shouldn't try to make it like the rest of the year. On the other hand, there's nothing in our tradition that dictates that one should suffer during the celebration of freedom, maror aside. Why not make things taste as good as possible and as much like the food we enjoy, so long as it obeys the laws that we have before us? It's true that the news should make us cautious and reflective to ensure that we don't move away from our beliefs and our ideals, but sometimes we get stuck in the old way and we don't allow ourselves to grow and evolve. One of the things that I love about Judaism, especially conservative Judaism, is our ability to evolve with proper precautions. Perhaps AI is another tool that will allow us both to live in the modern world and fully and joyfully engage in our heritage, and we should embrace it. Actually, there are already opinions being written on some of these questions. The use of timers and computers to automate things on Shabbat has long been part of our practice. I'm grateful for that technology, especially this morning, because I was able to set my coffee before the holiday and have that much-needed cup before I came to you this morning. A robotic mashgiach checking our food is quite possible one day. And perhaps it will make our lives easier, less costly. But of course, in that convenience, we risk losing something else. And that brings us to the third question, connection. We have spoken about technology in the past in its ability to bring us together and to keep us apart. We see that with Zoom and with social media. Artificial intelligence is no different. As we become more digitally connected, we cannot forget the need for human interaction, compassion, empathy. Certainly, that can be synthesized. But is it ever quite the same thing? See? Computer doesn't know when not to go off and when to go off. I'm recalling an episode of Big Bang Theory, for those who are Big Bang theorists, where Raj, a socially awkward, hopeless romantic, began dating Siri on his iPhone. She was always there for him. She answered all of his questions. She had great suggestions for where the closest restaurant were for dates. And she even called him by a loving nickname. It seemed until the very end of the episode, she was the perfect solution to all of his problems. Of course, he eventually realized that she was not. Our computers have become very proficient in simulating connections, but the psychologists, social workers, mental health providers, and even all the caring people in this room can tell you of the issues that have arisen because of the lack of human interaction and communal connection in the modern world. No matter how effective the simulacrum, it is never the same as true human connection. Yet again, I come back to the reason why we're here today. We not only need others, but we need to be there for others. That is part of the holiday, that is part of the responsibility we speak about on these high holidays. Why do we come together? Why don't we just do the reflection that we need personally on a mountaintop somewhere or in a monastery with limited human interaction? It's because Judaism recognizes the importance and power of actual human connection. It's built on having other people there for you, but also on being there for others. And to my mind, that becomes the biggest threat of AI in our modern society. Not the iRobot, Terminator, Matrix scenario of it taking over the world, but the more subtle risk of it abrogating our responsibility to be human and to be there for each other. Rabbi Seth Adelson, in a sermon on Parshat Bamidbar, writes, ChatGPT will never be able to make a minyan. It'll never be able to give a proper hug to comfort those who mourn. It will never be able to get up and dance with joy as we name a new baby or as we celebrate a couple who's about to be married. The computer will never understand the value of Shabbat or the conscious choice to take the holy opportunities of Jewish life, which give our lives framework and meaning. So the biggest risk that has been raised in all three of these areas of ethics, halacha, and community is actually that of accountability. Who is responsible? Who is responsible for ourselves, and who is responsible for our community? Who is responsible when an automated car accidentally kills someone? Can we just step away and say, well, it wasn't us. It was the computer that made the mistake? Coffee timers, social media, and AI are all created by humanity's God-given gift of intelligence and capabilities. And like any tool, they need to be used with discretion and with purpose in mind. They're not inherently good or bad, but they come with risks. And if we're not careful about how to use them, those risks manifest. Technological developments far outpace our ability to comprehend the power and responsibility of what we've created. And the potential of good and destruction lies equal in many of our creations. The question we should contemplate this high holiday season is not whether or not we should use AI in the modern world, but what role do we allow for it, or any technology? What role do we allow it to play in our lives? There's a story of an observant Jew who was the owner of a very successful internet reputation management business, and on Shabbat, a client in New York was desperate to reach him. It was an emergency. She emailed him and didn't receive a response. She texted him. He didn't respond. She called him, and he didn't answer. After Shabbat, when he saw her urgent messages, he returned the call. Aggravated, she said to him, "Why didn't you answer my calls? I lost thousands of dollars today." He explained to her that it was Shabbat. "I have my Sunday as my day off, but when there's an emergency, I respond," she said. "Our Shabbat is different. I don't answer emails," he replied. "But I texted you." "I don't answer texts on Shabbat." "But I called you." "I don't answer calls on Shabbat." "So what do you do on Shabbat?" asked the woman, intrigued. "Well, we go to synagogue, we pray, we eat a meal with our family." "Okay," she said, "but a meal takes 20 minutes. "No," he explained, "our Shabbat meal can take 2 hours. We sit together, we sit with our children, we sing, we talk, we discuss ideas." The woman was taken aback. From time to time, she said, I try to gather my family together for a meal so we can have some quality time. But even if I finally succeed in getting everyone to sit down together, my husband is busy with his phone, and one child gets a WhatsApp message and is distracted, and then the other child gets a text and leaves the room. Shabbat seems like an amazing invention. Can you please show me how to use it? The antidote to destructive capabilities of any technological advancement is knowing when and how to use it. On this Rosh Hashanah, as we contemplate our lives and the paths that they will take in the coming year, we pray for the wisdom to use the amazing advancements in the world around us with intentionality and with purpose, with accountability, and the hope that in our hearts that by using it, we will make the world a better place for all, not just ourselves. May we understand the awesome responsibility that we have been given in the gifts of our minds and always balance them with the kindness, love, and meaning that resides in our hearts. Shana Tova.